evening, friends. I'm Lorraine, your host. On behalf of the GodCast ministry team and the Meadowbridge Seventh-day Adventist Church, welcome to part 2 of GodCast, Sabbath, Blessing, or Burden. We had started a fantastic conversation with some of our friends last week about their Sabbath experience. If you haven't seen part 1, check us out on YouTube, Meadowbridge SDA Church. And you can see the other episodes as well. Now let's pick up where we left off with our friends Bill, Amaris, Kimberly, Kaylin, and Otis. So are there any Sabbath rules that you had as a child that you just like, or as a new believer, that you just like, I don't like this and I don't understand this, but now you're like, okay, I get why they said that or what that's about?
I remember as a child, I'll never forget, my mom always told me and my sister that we weren't allowed to buy anything on the Sabbath. And by buy anything, my sister and I always just wanted like fast food, like McDonald's. Like, why can't we go to McDonald's? My mom was like, well, you only go home. And I just thought that she was just being cheap and she didn't want to buy McDonald's. But thinking about it now, it's, you have to get money, and money goes with your job, and your job is stressful, and it all goes together. And so even when my mom today asked me, do you want to get McDonald's? I'm like, no, I'm straight. I'll eat at home. Because I see how much just going to McDonald's impacts and how it makes you think about your money-wise and job, and how it can, little things can lead to big stresses. And
well, with my experience coming into the church in my 30s and learning how to become a Seventh-day Adventist, or what Seventh-day Adventist teachings are all about, not that it was difficult for me to grasp the concept. I think what helped me was not having any religion taught to me. I was like a blank sheet of paper coming in.
Okay.
And so when I took these seminars and started taking these Bible studies, it was awesome, because it was like, this is truth, this is truth, this is truth. And I didn't have a debate within me. It was just incredible. But as I was growing as an Adventist, I remember trying to understand, don't shop on the Sabbath. And so there was a precious dear sister. She's passed away since, but I remember I was struggling with understanding what God would forgive or would be okay with. And I remember talking to her about this, and I asked her, I said, what about if someone's sick and I want to go and pick up medicine for them, or orange juice? They don't have that in their home. And this elderly woman, she had to have been probably almost 90 years old. And she kind of turned and looked at me and said, now you're pushing it. And I walked away with that going, oh, I hope she doesn't, feel like that I'm trying to wiggle myself into shopping. But since I have learned that God isn't a God that restricts us with Sabbath rules, saying you can't go get something you need if it's a health issue or a medicine or something that's vital. So since I've learned that, I'm like, oh good, I'm clean. So it was a pretty cool experience.
That's cool. That's very cool. So that leads into the next question, which is, because you kind of know how the church feels about certain things, do you ever feel obligated in public to kind of maintain that Seventh-day Adventist stance on we don't shop, we don't this, just because you are a part of the religion, and not to kind of put a stain on what the church teaches? Have you ever felt that?
Don't mean to jump in right away, but I think because I wasn't raised with do's and don'ts, for me it seemed like it was easier for me to stand up for what I was learning about truth and the doctrine that we believe in. And I had pride in that, not ego pride, but I felt good about what I was taught, and was finding my way as I was getting to know Christ on a personal level. God just kind of made everything blend together, and found my personal understanding with that, so that was never an issue.
That's beautiful.
And I believe I probably do set some, and I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, I feel like I feel like I'm still a representative of some sort.
Okay.
I don't pretend to represent everything, but
Mhm.
I think I don't want to be a stumbling block to somebody
Okay.
that
Yeah.
may say, well, he's an Adventist and
Mhm.
I don't think he should be doing that.
Mhm.
I'm sure there are things I do that may apply to, but consciously I don't want that to be the case.
Right,
I
right.
still feel like I don't, whether we want to be an example or not, we are.
Right.
So I don't think it's necessarily a negative
Mhm.
to do the things that you think you should be doing.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
From a young age, like from being in Sabbath school, I was always taught what would Jesus do. And I remember when I was younger, when I was in school, when people would be telling me that going to church on Saturday was wrong, I would have to sit back and think, what would Jesus do? And being Adventist, I never thought that I had to be perfect because I knew that God accepted me as who I am, but still at the same time, I knew that I had to humble myself and I didn't have to present myself as somebody perfect because nobody's perfect. And so personally, being Adventist has taught me that the best way that I can represent the Adventist community and the Christian community as a whole is that God accepts us for who we are, and it's okay to make mistakes as long as we acknowledge that we make mistakes.
So, relationship. That's a real buzzword in Christianity right now. And what do you think about the idea that Sabbath is about relationship and not religion? And how do you even interpret that?
The way I would interpret it, and I'll go this way. The relationship you have in a church, whether it's Adventist church or wherever, I think we ought to really appreciate the fellowship that you have when you come and come together amongst peers and you're supporting and uplifting one another. That's special. It's really a bonding force. In terms of Sabbath, we tend, at least, and I've been in the church since 98, 99, somewhere in that window, and coming in, I had that sense of it's us against the world, so to speak. So when you come in here on a Sabbath, it's just awesome to be amongst friends.
Okay.
I think personally for me, when it comes to relationship and religion and then you have the Sabbath, I feel like they just all three go together.
Okay.
So even though I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, if I'm not helping other people with our relationship or their relationship with God, then I have to kind of take a step back. And as we were talking about humility as before, I've noticed a couple of times where I've thought, I'm going off of what the Bible says, I'm trying to do a good thing and bring it to someone else, and it kind of backfired on me because I wasn't able to let God do his work. So I found myself getting in the way of our relationship and that person's relationship with God.
Wow.
And then at the same time, my relationship with God wasn't as strong as I thought it was. So it's crazy how when you have the Sabbath and what your personal religion is and how that sets with your relationship with others and their relationship with God and your relationship with God, if I don't feel like that I'm doing something good and helping them where they need to get with God or just in our personal relationship together, then I really have to question, am I doing the right thing? So sometimes I just have to take that step back and take an outside perspective on it.
So let me ask this question, and particularly I'd like the parents to answer it. What, if anything, would you change about how you were taught the Sabbath or how you experienced the Sabbath, but then also how you taught it to your children? Bill?
Well, I can't tell you I've got the best memory because I absolutely don't. But my memories of growing up with the church, with the different things of the church, nothing but, they're all fond memories. I don't have moments where it just seems like, you're not gonna do this. Now, as a teenager, you do teenage things. But you just have you develop a different mindset as a teenager, and thankfully, most times they move on, you get past those. But so I've got nothing, the way my parents raised me, my sister and myself in the church, I'd say I've got nothing but fond memories and appreciate that very much. And I would say that, my wife growing in the church, or growing up in the church as well as I did, we, I think, raised our girls similarly as the way we felt we were brought up as well. Now again, there's so many different influences today, or in the last 20 years than there was when I grew up a few years ago. So, but you still, expose them to those same values and those same things, and whether it be pathfinders, that they're involved with, or just the routine, which I value the routine of the Sabbath as much as anything, because you know what's happening. You get up and you have the things you do on Sabbath morning are different than the things you do on Monday morning.
Right.
And thankfully, and it's just a joy to have that. And like I say, I think because of the influence I had growing up, it then gave me that same want to give that to my girls as well.
I had a more of a different experience, unfortunately. In hindsight, it's always something, and as I look back, I see myself as being the law and order guy of the house. So there was a lot of contesting, and I wanted to win the contest, if you will. And in hindsight, I wish I would have been a little more flexible, a little more just understanding and bending, and not have been so domineering at times. Although I think there are times when you just have to do, as a parent, what you have to do. But I wish I would have had just a little more balance to highlight the Sabbath being a joy as opposed to this oppressive time where my children have been shut down. The house is on lockdown.
Do you feel like your approach to the Sabbath and teaching it was because that's how it was taught to you, or how you experienced it?
I think my approach was driven, I guess, by my perception of the resistance within the household. And, couldn't understand, why do they fight this so much? Why is this so bad? Why don't they see any value? And so I struggled with that for years.
Okay. Kim?
Well, as I'm listening, I'm thinking, I can answer both sides of that question. For me personally, if I could go back, I would change, I think, my motivation or my diligence about honoring God more with my personal walk with Him.
Okay.
On the other end of it, I wouldn't change a thing with my daughter, because I feel like God really had me and helped me to find a balance, just enough gentle persuasion, or sometimes I was a little firm. Yeah, I can be honest here. And there were days when Dad would come up behind me and say, "You're going to church." We'd hear, "Well, I'm wearing jeans," through the other side of the... And Dad didn't fight that. And I allowed her to make that decision. say, you know, you need to talk to God about that, and if He's cool with it, I'm okay. Because I'm not God, you know. But the other thing too is I had incredible mentors here.
Okay.
Bill's wife, Otis, leaned in with your mother, leaned in with you. I had about 20 grandmothers and 14 mothers. And I did 18 aunts. God replaced a family for me here. And so I could really lean into them and say, what do you think about that? And does this mean that? And is this wrong if I do that? And do you think I'm doing wrong here with my daughter? And I cannot speak to the value. If I were to scrape up all of the wealth of all the worlds, I couldn't touch the price of that.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's pretty cool.
So we talked a lot about the good and the bad and the challenges and all that. But my question to you all is, what do you love about the Sabbath? Caitlin?
I think for me, what it really comes down to is it's one day out of the week that I'm able to just put everything on pause and I'm able to solely just focus on my relationship with God and just praising Him and worshiping Him in ways that I felt like I just was lacking in the rest of the weekdays. But also as I've grown up, I think too that with the word Sabbath, I try to be more mindful with all the other days of the week too.
Okay.
So I try to think of, you know, whether it be Sunday through Friday, am I worshiping God, am I praising God? And then when Sabbath comes, it's like, I'm really feeling it today. So it's good.
It's a good culmination.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on what Caitlin said. It's a culmination in the domino effect with me. A good Sabbath, my observation, I have a much better week. Regardless of the events in the week, my approach to those events in the week is much better than when I'm not having a good Sabbath experience.
Okay.
So to me, it's a multi-part. One, just that rejuvenation of that day, as you say, getting away from all of the hoopla, not watching any news, nothing, just totally trying to focus on God as best to my ability that I can, and I see the benefit going forward during the next week.
All right.
I definitely think that I love the Sabbath because it's consistent and it's a consistent amount of positive energy that I get and positive reinforcement. My week could be terrible and stressful and chaotic, but I always know that Saturday, the Sabbath, is going to be the day that I can focus on myself. I can not only receive positive energy from other people, but I can also give it off to people that might need it too.
Right. Bill?
One of the things that I think about the most is the kind of the separation or the being separate from the world. You know, Curtis talked earlier about how, you know, maybe we don't perceive that people might appreciate what they have here or in a church.
Right.
Because it's so welcoming that as you're coming in and you are a part of something and it's almost as you shut the door of the church, and you don't want to shut anybody out, but it was like you're shutting the world out to, you know, okay. You know, it's a safe place, you know, or it should be, and it's great to feel that, you know, and the commonality that you have with people. As you're out there in the world, you know, we're, you know, the Adventists or Christians are a minority by far.
Right.
So that, you know, you can come to a place where you have people that have, and not everybody believes the exact same thing. Don't have to, but you are among like believers, and it separates us from everybody, and the brotherhood and sisterhood that we have with each other. It just lifts me up, and hopefully it lifts everybody else up as well. Amen.
Well, you took my word safe.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I didn't think anybody else would say that. I think because of my background with not having a lot of family, when I think about the Sabbath, I think about church as home. It's a safe place, and it's a place that I can either make a cake and bring it and partake and share it. And I mean, it sounds small, but to draw together with people that I know receive me. That receive me and love me no matter what, warts and all, and I don't have to worry about, you know, I know no church is perfect and people talk about people, but God's helped me with that one too. It's not my problem. I've let that go to God. But God's done amazing things, and I love how it's a spiritual essence to that time when the sun's going down, and it's just this feeling of peace and calm coming over me, and just knowing now I can pull away from the world, or it's like God even helps the world to pull away from me. And I just recline. I feel like we're almost reclining into God. It's Christ's bosom. Yeah, it's amazing.
So you all shared some really awesome things about the Sabbath and what it means to you. But I think a lot of times people who run into some Seventh-day Adventists, or people who are familiar with our denominational beliefs, don't have that same picture of Sabbath. It's kind of more a little bit of the restrictive thing that we talked about earlier. So what do you think we could do better in sharing the Sabbath with others?
I think that we as a community could be more humble and understanding that everyone is coming in differently. Everyone is coming in with different beliefs and different understandings of what this Sabbath really means, and it would be good to emphasize and point out our common belief, but at the same time, different ways to go about it is still the same, and still be accepting and not judgmental in any way, but still understand that at the end of the day, we all love the Lord, and we're all trying to get closer to the Lord. And the Lord doesn't want us to judge other people about how we go about them or how they go on their journey to get closer to Him. It's only about accepting and loving others and helping them on their journey.
All right. Kim?
Wow, that's pretty much exactly what I was in a nutshell.
Okay.
Meet them where they're at, and find the commonalities, and just receive them and don't judge. And just let God do whatever He needs to do, because we probably got something to learn. I'm sure we got a lot to learn from other people.
So is the Sabbath a blessing or a burden? Kaylin?
I would have to say for me it's definitely a blessing. It initially started to be more so of a burden as I was younger, but growing up I've been able to see all of the tiny little blessings that have been clouded by, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. So it's definitely been a blessing.
Otis?
Definitely a blessing. And I've talked before about the fellowship aspect of here, just invaluable. And I want to go back to what Maris was saying earlier. We talk about making the Sabbath more presentable. I think that should not be the first focus when we're engaging with someone. The first focus would be to get to know someone, to see what their needs are, to let them know, hey, I'm concerned about you as a person. And you know, that opening, if it's God's will come in time, but
Okay.
that I don't think that should be the primary move or goal. First goal should be to show someone that you love them, that you care.
Like Kaylin said, I did initially think that the Sabbath was a burden as a child when I wanted to stay at home and play with my toys instead of going to Sabbath school. I thought that there was really no purpose in the Sabbath, and I didn't even call it the Sabbath. I called it going to church on Saturday. But as I got older, I realized that the the Sabbath isn't just going to church, it's being able to strengthen your relationship with the Lord, having positive reinforcement. And it's now that I think about it, and now that I'm older and have more of an understanding, it's definitely a blessing instead of a burden.
Bill?
It's a blessing. No more than that.
Kim?
It's always a blessing. Always a blessing. It's always a blessing unless I am focused on what I want to do and feeling like I can't do it because it's Sabbath. And to say it's a burden, I think I feel that I'm missing my time with God and God's missing his time with me. And so that's a downer.
So the theme of GodCast is how to life with God, and all of our topics flow into that. So my final question to you all is, how do you life with God differently on Sabbath than you do every other day?
You know, to me, lifing with God on Sabbath is special. Again, I respect and just appreciate God just setting aside a day for us to remember. And I feel that I'm just duty bound. If you really love God, you want to please him, make him happy. So Sabbath, I try to make more of a special effort to get into his word, to really talk to God. Not that I don't do it during the other days, but today it's special, set apart. So I'm not going to say that there's something specifically in terms of a ritual routine that I do, but just overall, I really try to say, oh, hey, God, this is your day. Thank you. Because I don't think we can ever thank God enough for what he's done for us. And so I want to try to give back, knowing that I really don't have a whole lot in terms of value to give God, but I want to try my meager best to do something that hopefully pleases him.
I feel like on the Sabbath, I can life with God differently because Monday through Friday are days that are trial days that God gave me to see, not to see, but to more reassurance that he's there. And then on Saturday, it's like the end of the marathon. He's just like, you made it. Like, you know, you're here and I'm here with you. And it's a day that I can not only reassure to myself I'm strong and I can get through anything with God, it's also God standing there at the end of the finish line telling me that he's there and he's there to tell me that I made it and to give me a reassurance that I can do anything when he's with me.
Well, I believe that Sabbath is just such a special day. I'd like to say my walk during the week is adequate, and then, coming into the Sabbath on Friday evening, it just is a different time. It's an exhale to be able to, as it was said, that you've made it. You've cut through the tape. You're on the other side now. You have now 24 hours to enjoy, to enjoy your family more, to enjoy the things that the Sabbath has to offer more, just to be able to relax. Some Sabbaths aren't necessarily relaxing, because so we have activities that we have to do, with church sometimes, and sometimes that becomes stressful, but it does not stress the Sabbath. It still is the day. That stress on Sabbath is just it's just another part of your worship. And because you want to do your best for our Savior, that's what this is all about. And honoring him and the commitment that he's made to us, and that hopefully we've made back to him.
Well, to answer that question, I feel like I'm doing a 360 from the beginning of this session, thinking about what is it that I think of when I hear the word Sabbath. How do I life on the Sabbath? It takes me back to love. As I was growing up, not knowing God, and then when I became a Seventh-day Adventist, I learned the texts that talk about the Sabbath. And it says that the Sabbath is a covenant between me and thee. And because God first loved me, I feel his presence so much closer to me on the Sabbath than I do any other day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why or what that is about, but there's something special about that 24-hour period. And so to me, it's all about love and safety and thinking about times when I would go out and we'd have picnics on the Sabbath and being out in nature on the Sabbath, even if it rained, right? We could still kind of just chill and not do anything that stressed us out, but just recline in the nature and with each other. And that's how I life with the Sabbath.
I think honestly for me, and maybe I'm not interpreting the question the same way as everyone else, but I just think that I don't life differently really, intentionally, at least in any way, because I'm intentionally still trying to talk to God throughout the day. I'm doing what I would do every other day, but at the same time with the Sabbath, it's nothing that I'm intentionally doing, but it's just this emotional, kind of spiritual, mental, physical feeling that I get that just makes Saturday different from every other day, because it's something inside of me where it's just automatically, this is your day. This is your day that I've set aside, and you and me, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the problems that you're going through. We're going to really focus on what you're doing in your personal relationships, what our relationship looks like. So I'm not really quite sure how that works, because it's nothing I cognitively do on my own.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for taking your time to share with me. I've learned a lot from you all. I've seen the Sabbath in different light, different experiences, and I know our viewers have as well. So thank you again for sharing with us, being open with us, and for just teaching us how to life on the Sabbath differently. And thank you. I always appreciate the openness of our friends who join us for these discussions. The past 2 episodes, we've talked about the Sabbath and how that is experienced doing life with God. For our participants, the Sabbath means love, exhaling from the weak, encouragement, and fellowship. Yet they acknowledge that there are times they have struggled with the fact that it prevents them from participating in things with their friends. It can narrow their career options, and they can sometimes feel like they don't know what to do with the time. So, is it a blessing or a burden? Is it about relationship or religion? The Bible has a lot to say about the Sabbath. It was God's idea, and he had a purpose for it. So what was that purpose? I think there are many, and we can search the scriptures to identify them, but I just want to focus on 3 found in the verses where the Sabbath is first introduced to us in the Bible. Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 and 3, the Bible says, "And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had done," referring to creation, "and he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God created and made." So number 1, rest. This verse is our first introduction to the concept and purpose of the Sabbath. That is, rest from labor. Exodus 20:8 through 11 and Exodus 34:21 reinforce the idea of rest. But this is not just sleeping all day and that be it. I believe that this is calling on us to step away from all of the things of the week, all of the building, preparing, working, stressing, addressing, and impressing, just to rest with God, with family, with friends, and with church family from all of the stuff. You know the stuff. We all have it. We are all so busy. How many people who don't have a Sabbath take time to rest from the stuff consistently? Not many, especially in Western cultures. God knew that, and he made a day and said, just rest. Number 2, blessing. The scripture also said God blessed the seventh day, Sabbath. What does that mean? The dictionary says it means to invoke divine favor upon. The blessing is built into the day. Whether or not we see it or live it is based on our perspective. Science agrees that working 6 days and resting 1 day is optimum for the physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being of humans. It adds years to your life, improves short-term memory, makes you more creative, makes you more effective when you are working, improves mental energy, and a host of other blessings. Now, they don't promote or affirm any specific day, but God did right at the beginning of time. He infused the day for our holistic blessing. And number 3, holiness. Verse 3 says, God sanctified the seventh day Sabbath. Now that is just a churchy word that means to set apart as holy. But I like the synonym that says to dedicate to God. Since God is the only one that is holy, to set apart or dedicate to him makes sense to me. Exodus 20 verse 8 says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Once again, the holiness was built into the day by the Holy One. God reminds us in that verse that all we can do is keep it holy. We can't make it holy. That means that whatever we do or don't do won't change the holiness of it. However, this is an area where a lot of struggles happen between believers about what to do and what not to do on the Sabbath. I'm not going to provide a list because first, I am not God. And second, I think the answer is embedded in the scripture. The question that I must ask myself, and you must ask yourself in deciding what to do or not do, is, does this show dedication to God, or does this show dedication to me or another person? That is the line between holy and unholy. God reminds us that we have 6 days, Sunday through Friday, to do those things dedicated to us. Necessary things: work, school, play, gym, cooking, shopping, studying, writing papers, reading. He just said, I want this one, Saturday, and I want you to dedicate that to me. I want to hang out with you without all the distractions that fill the other 6 days. Wow. Think about it. If your husband or wife or children or friends said they were going to set apart a day every week that they were going to dedicate to you, would you say, nah, no thanks. I'd rather study or work or go to the movies. The God of the heaven wants to hang out with you and me exclusively, and he made a day just for that. What could be cooler than that? He does have other stuff to do. After all, he is, well, God. That's a blessing, not a burden. That's about relationship, not religion. Thank you for joining us. I pray that you've been inspired by this conversation to check out this Sabbath thing for yourself. See if the rest, the blessing, and the holiness is something that you might experience in your life. Please let us know, and maybe we can share that experience with you. Leave your comments and questions below, or email us at mbsda.godcast@gmail.com, and one of our ministry team will connect with you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so that you can receive an alert when the GodCast episode is posted. Like and share with someone else who may have questions about doing life with God. And please, join us next time when we will ask more questions and seek more answers as we continue moving Godward.